Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lifeline Podcast. We are real brothers having real conversation about real life. We're your hosts, Bo Powell, Lindsberg Petway, and Barry J. Elliott, also known as BJE. In our last episode, we talked about vulnerability and accountability. Today, we will focus on building systems of accountability. So, brothers, first of all, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What up? Good morning.
Good morning.
What up, though?
I was waiting for the what up, though. I was waiting.
You know what it is.
So tell me, what do you guys think? Why is it that this topic of accountability resonates with so many people now?
So many people or so many men?
We can do both if you so desire.
I think it resonates with men, and I'll say this for the size shoes that I wear, is that I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary for men to have an opportunity to speak, to share, to kind of bridge the gap, because like we talked last week, most men, I think we are in the same predicament. We were taught to be a man based upon what we saw. And sometimes that wasn't the correct visualization of what a manhood should look like. So I think it's necessary for these periods of accountability, especially if you were an athlete. When I say we're a little older now, so we don't have coaches, strength coaches, position coaches, head coaches telling us what to do. And I find that personal for me, because I was an athlete, and you have these coaches who kind of lead you. They could be pseudo mentors and different things like that. And then when you get into adulthood, of course, you have some discipline, but you lose that person or that voice that kind of guides you.
Yeah. I can agree with that. And I'll just say this. I think it's becoming more prominent amongst men, is because a lot of men are living in the gap. That gap between kind of like, where we are and where we're supposed to be. And, it's a loud gap, especially now that social media is out here, because now comparison comes into play, and men are naturally competitive. So, and most men, and maybe I'm being a little bit, but a lot of men don't really have anybody in their life that's honest enough in them to help them close that gap. And so one of the challenges is with that, I think, is because of isolation. We have kind of lived in this isolated place, but we weren't really designed to live there. And so I think last season we talked about, needing help is looked at as weakness. So you should be able to pull it up by yourself and make it happen. So, you should be able to figure this out. That's what shows you strong. So we got a generation of men who are capable. They're functioning, but they're deeply isolated at the same time. So I believe that accountability starts to resonate now, because men are really starting to feel the cost of being isolated so often. And so that quiet exhaustion has them really kind of carrying everything with no one to hand it to.
You just said something powerful. The quiet exhaustion. That's a real thing. Yeah,
it's a real thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just what that is. So let's talk about it. So what does healthy accountability look like between men?
I would say, I would say three things. I would say it starts with communication, because you have to be willing to talk, which is often hard for us, because often we're taught to let our performance speak rather than our words. And it's difficult for us. We can tell you what we're thinking, especially when we're excited about something or if we're angry about something, but we find it challenging to tell you what we feel. So when you come into a place of accountability, you got to start talking about those vulnerable places. So I think it starts with communication. Then I would say community. That means a commitment to be a part of a particular group, that you're committing to this squad, as you call it, Bo. And then lastly, I would say character. I think because then you have to make a decision that I'm going to be committed to this. I won't say lastly. I'll say thirdly, I'll say character, because you were talking about integrity. So it means that you're making a commitment to say that I'm going to be a part of this and I'm going to be honest. And then thirdly, I will say the commitment piece. It means that you have to be committed to what you're going to do, and it can't be based on convenience. It has to be based out of principle. So that's what I would say the system for me of accountability look like.
That's very good. I think that before you get a squad, you need a person. And that person should reflect honesty and respect. Because if I respect you and you're honest with me, then I can be vulnerable and I can share things with you. So I think those are the two things that are definitely necessary. Of course, the character, I think that's one of the qualities that a person should have, but definitely they should be, you should respect the person, and they should be honest with you, because you need somebody to kind of, I say this with all due respect, lightweight, check you.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Yeah.
You need somebody to kind of grab you up and say, look, bro, look in the mirror. This is what you said you wanted to be. Now, do you see that? Without being scared of or fearful of the retaliation or the response that he's going to give you,
Yeah, and I like the way you put that, because I think a lot of times when we start to think about accountability, we think it's about surveillance.
That's good.
Like somebody's watching over me or something like that. But that's not really accountability.
Yeah.
So healthy accountability is about two men who are really committed to growth and choosing to walk together in the same direction.
Right.
So, healthy accountability, like you said, I think you have to have, you have to have a person and a group of people that can help you accountable. It's not this vast accountability. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have today, is we're trying to be accountable to too many things and too many ideas, instead of really kind of narrowing that down to people that we respect, who can speak into our lives or who can challenge our thought processes, and really know where we're trying to go, so they can really help sharpen us and guide us into that direction. So I think, it starts there, because when men start to look to the world for accountability, it's too broad. Now we're trying to get something from the world, whereas we should be trying to give to the world. Right. And so we need small pockets of accountability that can help us to, sharpen our focus, so we can really show up how we need to be. And I think it's a voluntary and mutual thing that makes a healthy accountability work.
But you know what, Bo? I think that sometimes when we think about accountability, we also see it only for people that are our contemporaries or people that are or our superiors. But I think also that you have to think about accountability in the sense of those who follow you. Because I know for myself, there's some choices that I don't make because I know there are other people looking at me. And we may not consider that accountability, but I see it that way because I don't want to disappoint them, because I want to continue to be an example. So I think when we think of accountability, we can't just see it as our colleagues or those people who are higher ups, whether that's a mentor, a boss, professor, whatever that may look like. We have to consider that we're also accountable to the people that follow us.
Yeah, I like that insight, because now we're speaking of modeling, being role models.
Yeah.
I remember when Charles Barkley, back in the day, he got famous for saying, I ain't no role model. Right? But in reality, that is a level of accountability, just understanding your role as a man and as a leader, that we are accountable to the people who are watching us. However, at the same time, I believe that we can't get too caught up and lost in that, because sometimes we can tend to hide our wounds or our scars for so much. And I think so in being accountable, we also have to be honest and authentic to those people as well. So with that, so So I
But
mean,
but let
go
me
ahead.
say this. I was
Mhm.
thinking. I think also we have to be able to give permission. There has to be permission for both parties to speak, to hold each other accountable. It's funny because I was thinking about how parents drop their kids off at Little League, and these coaches are there. Some of them are qualified, some of them are not, but they're
Yeah.
given permission to coach that particular child.
Mhm.
And as you go up through the ranks all the way to professional, even these professionals who are making sometimes twice as much as the coach, they're still giving that coach permission to lead them. So I think the permission is definitely necessary between the two parties.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, and I to and it's just while we're on this, I was just starting to think about when you talk about permission and stuff. It just made me think about the verse that says, "Iron sharpens iron."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proverbs
You
27,
know,
17.
yeah, there you go. And so,
Mhm.
the thing about it is, back when we look at scripture, you know, the church just didn't meet on Sundays. They did life together,
Yes, sir.
and they confessed to one another, and they bore each other's burdens. So, when you think about it, we've kind of made accountability kind of a self-help concept, right? In
Mm,
today's time.
that's
But
good. Mhm.
but it's something that's been evident and something that's been um, part of how our lives are supposed to be from way back then. And so we're actually really built for that. We can't be sharpened if we're not open, if we're not honest, if we haven't give people permission to really look into our lives, we can't really do it. So I think the reason it feels so foreign to so many of us because we were raised in a culture that says the strongest man is the most self-sufficient one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
But the
Yeah.
scripture says it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So really what makes a man strong is the one who knows that he can't really see in himself and he trusts someone else to kind of show him.
Yeah.
I think Stephen
Mhm.
Covey said it best when he said that the highest state of existence is not independence, but it's interdependence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing that we
Yeah.
are interlocked and we're inextricably linked together. So yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we sharpen each other? I mean, what questions are we asking? What are we doing when we find that person that we're going to be accountable for? What do we do? What are we asking them, fellas? To hold them honest and to hold them accountable.
You
Yep.
mean asking them as far as somebody holding us accountable or if we're holding
Yeah.
somebody else accountable?
If we've been asked to be that accountability partner, what are we doing to hold them accountable?
I think, it's a few things that we're going to do. First off, just checking in,
Okay.
with each other. I can even speak just from a personal experience recently, where I asked you brothers to keep me accountable
Mm-hmm.
on, getting back, in a healthy lifestyle. And I mean, you guys been showing up for me, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
um, checking in. I mean, I got a text message
Yeah.
from you, Linsberg. It'll be like 3 o'clock
4 in
in
the
the morning.
morning.
4 is,
And I thought about that. I'm like, I'm an hour ahead.
so, so it was, but I appreciated that because,
Yeah.
I said, hey guys, I need you guys to keep me accountable to where I'm trying to
Mhm.
get to, right? Because I had a gap that I was trying to close.
Right.
And so, and it wasn't anything major. He says, man, you up getting that money today?
Yeah.
And so he said, and so it was just as simple as that. And my response was, hey, bro, I'm at it. I'm locked in.
Right.
So just various things like that. Sometime if it's a more formal part of accountability, maybe it's a business stuff, we may ask some more questions, how have you progressed and how are things going? Could be just a
Mhm.
simple question.
Mhm.
Just to kind of allow that brother to share, and see if there's maybe some blind spots that we can kind of work through. But I think it's just as simple as that, just the
Yeah.
check-ins.
The
And
check-ins.
see how you tracking, man,
Mhm.
just checking on you. You see what I'm saying? So things
Mhm.
like that, I believe, are just really healthy ways that we can ask questions to keep people accountable and keep our brothers accountable.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bo.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. The fact that you sent that text to us, I took it
Yeah.
personal. I
Yeah.
even set an alarm. It says check on Bo.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
because I didn't have brothers.
Yeah.
So then to have a man to kind of need me or lean on me, as small as it is. My kids are my kids. They always want something.
Right.
But to when you put that petition out, I took it honestly. I took it seriously. So I mean, I forgot I was an hour ahead. But
no, it was all good. It was all good. I'm up early normally anyway, so it was perfect. But I really appreciated that.
Right.
Barry checked in, Steve's checked in. So it's been, it's been great in keeping me on track, and it's really helped me get locked in. I mean, look at what happened, man. We were sharing pictures on Sunday about our meal prep.
Right.
you know, and I ain't and I literally hadn't done that for probably a decade.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. It's my first time ever. I mean, I've always cooked, but meal prep per se, never. It's only in the last 3 weeks I started doing it. But going back to that conversation that started about holding you accountable, I want to go back to the initial question you asked about some things that are necessary for accountability. I would say courage. And the reason I say courage, because it takes courage to unveil yourself, to uncover yourself to another person, especially another man, because we're built to compete against one another. And when I say built, I mean culturally. We're built to compete against one another. So for me to unveil myself in front of you to say, this is where I am, that takes courage. And so, I respected the fact that, because first when you sent the picture, I was like, what is this? Right? But then it made sense, you were willing to be vulnerable. That took courage. And then to say, I need help, that takes another level of courage to say, this is where I am, because you think about the fact that a lot of men, we don't even go to the doctors because we don't like to admit that we need help. So for you to say, I need help in this area, to expose yourself, that takes courage.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And we got to ask the real questions. I was thinking about a friend of mine. He lost his mom last year. And then within the last 3 weeks, his wife had a simple cold that turned to pneumonia, that turned to being on a breathing machine, that turned and she's sedated now with a ventilator.
Wow.
All within 19 days.
Wow.
And he's a strong man. He's a very strong man. We work out together, and he's still been coming. And how's your wife doing? He gives me all of the updates. But then I said, bro, how you doing?
Yeah, that's the question.
How you doing?
Yeah.
And he said, I was good until, and he opened up and shared with me, and we was working out, and he got a call. He said, I got to go to the hospital. And I grabbed him, hugged him, prayed for him right there on the gym floor.
Yeah.
And he gave me permission to do that. Most brothers, you ain't hugging them in the gym, but the fact of our relationship, and we had built the bridge there, and I think he needed it at that particular time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience last week. The gentleman, the company that cleans our church, his father just found out who they were coming together to clean. Father just found out he had stage 4 cancer. And he walked to my office. He said, Barry, I need to talk to you. I said, what's wrong? And I could tell he had been crying. He sat in my chair, just cried. And he told me what's going on. And then before he left, I embraced him. And I said, man, I'm here. He didn't need prayer. He just needed my presence at that moment. And so I think that's a part of accountability, is knowing how to be present. And so you were present for that brother. And that's a big deal. And I think, both of you touched on it, that sometimes the thing that is necessary is really, how are you? Because that people often say, how are you, as a greeting, but really don't stop to listen to what that really entails. So that's a big thing. It seems small, but it's major.
Yeah. And sometimes asking another question to pull the answer out, because sometimes men will give you, I'm good, I'm straight, I'm dealing with it.
Yeah.
But if they really want to kind of share with you, and sometimes you got to ask another question,
Absolutely.
a follow-up to help pull that out of it. So, you talked about systems. I was funny. Barry, you mentioned systems that you had never meal prepped, and you said you hadn't did it in 10 years. How does systems kind of work with accountability? What systems need to be in place to hold brothers accountable?
I think time. when I say time, I think there needs to be periodic, like for you, it's apparently 3 o'clock in the morning where you want to see chicks. but I think, for me, like the men that I coach or mentor, we set up a time weekly or monthly or bi-weekly that we check in. So I think a part of that, of systematizing your approach to accountability, is making sure that you have time commitment.
Yeah, time is, again, consistent too.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that earlier, being consistent with the check-ins. And that's why I kind of set the alarm, because I didn't want to be just 1 or 2 times, but in April, I'm still calling you. In June, I'm still checking on you because, like I said, I take that serious.
At 3 a.m.
No, no, I changed the time.
Yeah, he texted me, said, I ain't realized that I was an hour ahead of you, right?
Aaron Thomas say get up at 3.
Hey, dude, it was all good, man. It was all good. But
yeah,
I think systems are really important because, a system is what makes a man's values really more visible.
Yeah.
And being able to have a system in place, I think is necessary because it gives structure to accountability. Right. Because at the end of the day, it's not like Lynchburg can be with me every single, what I'm saying? He ain't gonna walk me to the gym. He's gonna check in. So there needs to be systems because, a lot of men can, articulate what their values are, but they really have no structure that really reflects it. So, they talk about saying families first, but then you look at their schedules and it says something totally different.
Yeah.
So that gap between what a man says he values and how he actually lives is where his character is going to quietly erode.
That's good.
And a lot of guys don't really notice that until something starts to break. And so what happens is that system, it protects those values in so many words. So that I believe there needs to be something in the morning that anchors a man, and then maybe a weekly review. But then you have those relationships like Lynchburg's we're talking about, where we've given someone permission to ask those hard questions, right? And I think that's important because if we have given somebody permission, that means we have a level of respect for that person. So when they come at us, then we're less likely to shut down. So, I think even from the very jump, Lynchburg talking about, check us, somebody that's going to check us. So that's not somebody that's a fan, that's a brother. It's like the Bible says a brother was born for adversity. But something I wanted to add to that, and this is not even something that I did, but just something I was thinking about, but having a value statement. That really kind of helps, drive that and shape the character of that system. So, whenever you make a decision and somebody's accountable, there's always going to be something to test the integrity of that. And sometimes being able to go back and review that vision or that value statement because it's actually written down, that makes it more real. And you can always go reference that.
Yeah.
That's
good. Man. And integrity doesn't survive on motivation. It survives on systems. Because I believe if a man doesn't have systems and things in place, then he starts reacting or living off his emotions. We don't want an emotional man.
But Bo, I'm not Bumps. I'm sorry, Petway. I'm sorry. We say we want an emotional man, but
well, you know what I mean.
No. But hear what I'm thinking though. We don't want them. We don't just want them not to be emotional in terms of being weak-minded per se, but we also don't want them to be erratic in terms of being controlled by anger or impulse, because that's dangerous. We've talked about mentors and we've talked about coaches. For you, the accountability partner, what kind of characteristics should an accountability partner have?
Check out the characteristics. Yeah. I think they should be honest, like I said earlier. And spirit of desertion,
Desertion?
Yeah.
Desertion.
Discernment.
No, desertion.
Desertion. Okay.
Desertion.
Yeah.
I never heard that one before.
Explain.
That must be a Detroit thing. Desertion.
Being able to just keep the secrets. You know what I mean? Being able to I'll share something with you. Don't go tell somebody else. And then I might not even tell you, Bo, don't tell him this. But based upon me pouring out to you and sharing what I wanted to share with you doesn't mean you should tell other people. Yeah. Yeah. And me personally, I think I need somebody who's saved, somebody who's spiritual,
For sure.
because who's going to guide me the way I'm going, and not kind of lead me down the other path. So
Okay, so let me ask you this. So even professionally, so say for instance, if your next place professionally, does that person in your next company, dealership, wherever life takes you, does that person that may be in your job, that may be your accountability partner, do they need to be saved for you to thrive, you think?
No, I'm
Good
not
question.
talking professionally. No, I'm not talking
Okay.
professionally. I can respect what you've done professionally and your customer service and your business practices. But you might not, you might be a whoremonger, or you might drink, or you might
For
smoke
sure.
marijuana. So not in that. I'm talking about in the perspective where I'm sharing things like I share with you guys.
Got you.
I have opened up to you two and haven't even, talked to my significant other or some things, but you guys are my brothers. So I'm talking about when it comes to somebody grabbing me and said, look, Petway, I need somebody who is saved and living the life that I've lived. That's what
I got you.
Yeah, I think that's key, and just to your point, yeah, we don't want a man who's unregulated emotionally, who can't, maintain those. But some of the qualities I was thinking about, I think that's the question. That was the question of what
You
we're
got
talking
it.
about, coaching.
Yes, sir.
Definitely integrity. I think is key. A lot of people tend to put image over integrity, but I think you want to have men who are of good character, and good rapport. So I think it's important to find men that are more concerned with who he actually is, than how things look. Because people can get caught up in that these days. We think that's a woman thing, but men too. I mean, probably even more so sometimes because we're so competitive. I mean, the last show, Lensberg was talking about the guy who bought 2 cars, right? Because he's talking about the competitiveness. But I think also, you look for someone who's ahead of you in at least one area.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because it doesn't mean you have to have it all together. That's not what it is. But he needs to have something that you're reaching toward. So because when it comes to accountability, in essence, it's also kind of a coaching type deal too.
Correct.
So you need someone that can help you stay disciplined, and can be committed to helping you do that. Someone like you said, Lensberg, who's not soft, but they're safe. So you need to be somebody that's not going to judge you. Somebody you can bring your worst case scenario and you're not going to feel judged. You may be challenged, but not judged. And then most importantly, I think consistent.
Yes.
Consistent, somebody who's consistent in themselves. Again, not perfectly, but have it. But also somebody who's coachable, themselves. I think those are extremely important qualities to have. So it's not about, looking for somebody who's going to make you feel good or anything like that. Just looking for somebody who's committed enough to where you're going, and that's willing to tell you the truth.
I like that.
I like that. Yeah. I like wisdom. Wisdom and experience is what you said. Because like you said, they don't have to have it all together, but they have enough experience that you can draw from. I think the older that I've gotten over the last 4 years, from 49 to this particular age I am now, I am able to kind of be more direct with people. So if someone's asking for my help,
Imagine that.
I don't know what that means, but but just being more direct. Sometimes you might pity pat with a person because you don't want to step on their toes. But now, like, look, bro, you can't do that. What you mean, pet? What now? You said you were going to do A, B, and B. That's not part of it. You can't do that. You know, and in order for me to say that, I have to reflect some discipline. I have to reflect some consistency. You know, I can't throw that out there and I'm all over the place. And because the first thing you'll say, well, but you did, look at you, you know. So that's the first thing a person gonna say. So experience and wisdom, I think that's necessary too.
That's real.
Absolutely.
That's real.
Yeah.
So my last question I want to ask you guys, what would you say to a young man about the importance of accountability? And I'll start with you, Lindsberg.
I was just having this conversation with my sons because they're transitioned from high school to college to living upstairs to living on their own. And sometimes you got to be accountable to yourself. You have to set your own standards. So I would tell the young man, set your own standards. I would say set up a system where you get up, you pray, you thank God, you have a affirmation statement, you work out. I would also say find someone who is more experienced and has a little wisdom. Listen. For example, the young man that purchased the 2 cars has been very successful. So he's 39. He reached out to me and he said, I would love to talk to your son.
Wow.
Okay. And my son is 20. So I sent the information to my son, give him a call. The young man called me and left me a voicemail Wednesday morning and said, I would love to talk to your son. I learned some things the hard way and I want to be able to give them back. So call my son again, give him a call. Week goes by, call my son. Did you call? No, I didn't. Why not? I said, look, we're 2 men, we're having a conversation. Okay. Well, I didn't think it was important. I said, okay. You didn't think it was important. So daddy mode wanted to come out, but at the same time, if you can figure it out on your own, you got to figure it out, then you do so. But I did leave him another a text message, and you know, kind of urging him to reach out. And he did, and he said it was beneficial. So listening to the people who have experienced different things and putting yourself with people who can help you, because if you can have someone guide you and you can miss certain mistakes, you know, I think that's very beneficial. So, you know, and young people nowadays, they got to figure it out. You know, I can do it on my own, but just kind of listen to the people in front of you.
Yeah, that's good. And I think it's great that you kind of allowed him to do it his way, you know,
Right.
like you said, instead of
he'll be
mode.
21. So,
Yeah,
you know, I can't hold his hand.
yeah, that's incredible, man. So, but what I'd say to a young person is that, like the season that you're in right now is setting up patterns that you're going to live for the next 20 years, right? Or longer. And so, you know, that the habits that you build, the men that you allow close, the standard that you hold yourself to, you know, all of it's gonna compound, and it's compounding right now, whether you're intentional about it or not. So, you know, accountability isn't something that you add later, you know, like a lot of us do, or you know, you add it when things get serious. You know, life is already serious in of itself, so you may not feel the weight of it just yet. You know, and I think that's kind of what Lindbergh's point, you know, you kind of slow to move because you don't understand the seriousness and weight of life. Right. And so the 3 things I would want to say is you're going to become who you hang around. Not might, but you will become the men that you hang around. So the men you give access to your life are going to shape your values. They're going to shape your standards. And they're also going to, you know, be in the silly, whether you're paying attention to it or not. So you want to choose that intentionally. Also, your blind spots are going to cost you. You know, and the younger you are, the more expensive they can get because you have more life ahead of you to pay the bill. So a mentor or accountability partner is not just a sign that you can't handle it yourself, but it's insurance, if you will, against the version of you that you know, that you don't even know about yet, you know, because you don't even know what you don't know. But also accountability, it builds, if you do the accountability now, it's going to build a muscle that you're going to use later. So your marriage is going to require it. Fatherhood is going to require it. Your leadership is going to require it. So you want to learn those lessons now, because an accountability part is not just about telling you what's right to do, but it's also going to help you avoid some of the mistakes that could cost you long term. So, find someone who's a person of faith, who's spiritual. You want to find a person who's honest, not perfect. But you want somebody who also is accountable to someone,
That's great.
you see what I'm saying? So, because they can't really teach accountability if they haven't embodied it themselves.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would say to a young person about the importance of accountability.
In addition to what you guys said, all of it was great. I would say, don't be afraid to have people in your life who are unafraid to tell you what you don't want to hear. Don't surround yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear, because it's like candy. If you eat too much of it, it's going to make you diabetic. So you need people that are not afraid to tell you that your crap stinks and that your behavior is toxic. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So, Lansbury, you want to say something else?
No, I was just thinking, especially these star athletes, and especially these young athletes. And Michigan just passed the law that NIL can now be handed down to high school students. So as good as that it can be, it also can create problems. So that's why you need that accountability.
Absolutely.
You need those mentors. And I just thought about that.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I didn't know that. That's wild.
Yeah. Well, always be closing. I love it because it gives you an opportunity to start the brand earlier and understand that you are a brand. You represent more than just yourself.
Sure.
But it could get polluted when you start giving loads of money to 16, 17-year-olds because they don't know what to do and how to do it. So
when you consider like your children, they come from a house with structure. They have a framework. But if you consider that there are a large percentage of people that come from a place with no core values, no structure, and so they get that kind of access, it can become a disaster.
And they might not even reach their full potential because sometimes it happens once they get to the league.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then everybody starts to try to live off of them. So it's a two-edged sword. A lot of people don't like it, but if you start the training now, as far as the value of money, how it works, how to invest it, all those different things, then it can be.
But here's the
people
thing,
like
though.
Bo.
But here's the thing, though. You can teach them how to deal with money, but if they don't have the character, they don't have the bandwidth to facilitate that experience or the success that may come with it. So, one of the things I wanted to say earlier is that one of the dangers of not having accountability is that you have people that celebrate your charisma, but you have a jacked up character.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I think with these athletes, we celebrate their charisma, their gifting, but we do not, or should I say, when I say we, I'm talking about America and the system, is not really fit to develop them in terms of their character. And so we are really setting them up for failure in a lot of cases.
Yeah. That's a whole different show.
I was going to say, that sounds like that's a show right there.
Yeah. Because it's a reflection of society.
Absolutely.
It's a reflection of what we, when I say we, not us, but what society allows.
Values.
You can mess up, disappear 2-3 years, come back, nothing happened, and you still have that character flaw. You didn't apologize. You didn't do what you were supposed to do to try to change your behavior. And it can lead to a person spiraling out of control. For example, Antonio Brown, star receiver.
Wow.
And he just spiraled out of control, so because always getting the pass because you're so good, we should talk about that, really.
Yeah. I'm with that. All right, Barry, you good? It's
I'm
like
good.
you're itching over there. All
I'm
right.
good. I'm good.
Well, I'll just say this, as we close this conversation, I want our listeners to remember this. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intention and accountability. Every man needs people in his life who can ask the hard questions, speak truth with care, and walk with him as he grows. See, real strength isn't doing life alone. It's building the kind of relationships and systems that help you become the man you were meant to be. Now, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your hosts, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, Bo Powell. We're on a mission to bring light and life into the places people don't always talk about. So stay with us, join the conversation. We want to hear from you because the Lifeline exists to speak life into your life. Just real brothers, real life, real conversation. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.